Alright, moving right along, we're getting pretty close to the end of historic teams actually. I have a few that I have to go back and do videos for that I originally skipped, but going by a year, we really don't have that many left here. We're now at the 2008 Rockets, and I'm more than happy to discuss one of my favorite 2K duos ever. If you can't tell, I'm obviously talking about T-Mac and Yao, and it's mostly because T-Mac was the player that got me into the NBA, he was my favorite player growing up, so of course I was begging 2K to add him into the game years before he finally showed up in NBA 2K16. Thankfully they inserted the Rockets instead of the Orlando Magic, because then we would have had one of those Allen Iverson Sixers situations where the only way to use a great player would have been to use a terrible team. As you probably know, the Rockets were far from a terrible team, it's just that injuries kept screwing them over year after year. This specific team won 55 games, but what makes them so special, and the reason they're actually in 2K, is because they hold what I believe is the 4th longest win streak in NBA history at 22 games. So back in 08, while everybody was paying attention to the new Big Three in Boston, this team, even without Tracy McGrady for some of those games I believe, was putting together a crazy win streak, and I think the Celtics actually ended up breaking that if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, that 22 game win streak is why they put them in the game, but I really wish they would have used the 09 Rockets instead. Many eons ago when I was on NBA 2K9 non-stop, towards the end I actually picked up a win streak with that team because although injuries did kill them in real life, you could fix the rosters online. So that team was sporting T-Mac, Ron Artest before the Lakers, and Yao Ming. That squad was deadly AF. This team isn't quite as good as that one was, but you do get to live out what they could have been if both T-Mac and Yao hadn't missed a ton of games combined that year. So basically, you can grab this team and dominate the way they should have been able to in real life. You may remember my Dallas episode where I used to point out that even though Shawn Bradley isn't that good, he's still useful because he's like 7'6". Well, Yao Ming is actually that good, and he's just about as tall. Essentially, what you have in Yao Ming is a cheat code, and if 2K's layup system wasn't so ratchet, I can't imagine how anybody would stop him. But the idea is not to just jam Yao Ming inside all game because defenses are gonna probably adapt, but if you use him strategically, there's not a lot of teams that'll deal with him well. So the things to know about Yao is that it's obviously easy to get blocks with him in the paint or just bother shots in general, but him being on the same team as T-Mac on offense just creates a world of problems for your opponent. Not only does he have an easy release to time, but he can hit a mid-range jumper consistently pretty much from anywhere on the floor. That means you've got an unlimited amount of options when putting him in pick action with Tracy McGrady, because I'm gonna go out on a limb and say that T-Mac is not that far from Kobe Bryant in this game. As far as an offensive game goes, there's almost nothing you can't pull off with him. From experience of playing with both him and Kobe, I would say the only thing Kobe clearly does better in the game is back-to-basket work and fadeaways. As far as just facing your opponent up with the ball in his hands, T-Mac is quick, he's agile, he can shoot both the 3 and the mid-range, he can finish at the rim. Oh, and speaking of finishing at the rim, he has a serious case to be the greatest dunker in this entire game. Realistically, Vince Carter probably gets the edge on him, and you really only see one monster dunk in my gameplay, but I had to face the Rockets about a week ago and this guy was doing all kinds of crazy stuff with him. So yeah, if you give T-Mac the ball and involve him in action with Yao Ming, just do whatever you want, man. If you feel like creating space after the pick to pull up, you got that. If you see an open lane to pass to Yao, once he gets deep enough in the paint, he'll either finish it or he's gonna get his own rebound. And like I said earlier, Yao is a knockdown shooter, so you can pick and pop all day, and you're gonna see how important that play was actually by the end of this video. As far as the negatives for this team, maybe it was just me, but I really didn't like using their bench. This is not a prime Steve Francis that comes with the second unit, so he's not as good as you think he should be, and overall it just felt kinda difficult to create a great offense without T-Mac or Yao on the floor. What I would recommend is keeping at least one of them on the floor at all times so you can have a decoy that the defense has to keep an eye on. When you let the entire second unit loose, there's really nobody that can just create offense on a whim. Speaking of the bench, you're gonna find Mutombo is a pretty useful asset, and depending on who you're playing, you might shoot for a twin tower effect with him and Yao. Obviously, with most modern teams, you'll never want to do that because Mutombo isn't guarding stretch fours or mobile fours, but he's still good at defense, and there's definitely situations where crowding the paint with him and Yao on that side of the floor is gonna make sense. Also, very underrated, Steve Novak is on the bench as well. Many people won't remember him because it felt like he had one good year with the Knicks in 2012, then he just disappeared, but you can use that fact to your advantage. If you make sure he's actually in your rotation before the game, I guarantee you your opponent is gonna forget he's on the floor at least once or twice, and those are free points. And the last mention I have is Shane Battier. Just like it'll make sense to play Mutombo at power forward sometimes, it'll make even more sense for most teams to put Shane Battier there instead. I'm pretty sure either Luis Scola or Carl Landry are the traditional forwards on this team, and neither of them are consistent floor spreaders. You can easily stick Battier there even if it's not to start the game, but if that's an adjustment you see could help you during the game, that'll give both T-Mac and Yao a ton of space to work with because it's going to keep the defense honest. That's probably the best thing you can do for Yao Ming, especially because when you put his back to the basket, you can guarantee your opponent is probably going to try to double team, he's going to bring help from somewhere. So if you have Battier standing on the 3-point line, you have him somewhere else that's not in the paint, it makes it that much harder for them to bring help on Yao. And that's about all I got for this team. I haven't played a ton of games with them because at the time I was just trying to move through the rest of the teams, but obviously in the video game world where injuries aren't a factor, T-Mac and Yao are a duo that's not too far from Kobe and Shaq in the video game world. Of course, Shaq is much more dominant than Yao, but do not sleep on Yao Ming's crazy height and his ability to back anyone under a goal. And if you're already good with the control sticks and dribble moves, then the entire floor belongs to you with Tracy McGrady. Hit the like button, comment, and sub if you enjoyed, and hit the bell next to my name if you want notifications on the next videos. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys with the next team.